This 30-year-old Kevin Costner flop is actually an underrated Western that deserves another chance. Long after 1957's gunfight at the OK Corral starring Burt Lancaster and Kurt Russell premiered, one of the most famous incidents of the American West once again graced the silver screen in the form of Tombstone, 993 with an all-star 1990s cast. The film has since gone on to be considered a hallmark of the Western genre, and its hold on audiences remains strong to this day. Surprisingly, one of the most notable Western actors missing from its roster of luminaries was Kevin Costner. But this was not always the case for Tombstone. Costner had once been attached to act in the project, but opted out when he had different goals for the picture. He would go on to release his own project the following year, focusing solely on the life of Sheriff Wyatt Earp. Only, his pet project would prove to be far less successful than the now legendary Tombstone. Kevin Costner was originally attached to work on Tombstone. Tombstone depicts a famous gunfight that took place between a group of lawmen and a cadre of cattle rustlers and horse thieves known as the Cowboys. The entire incident lasted less than a minute, but it's not failed to be a source of unrelenting interest since. The 1993 film was written by screenwriter Kevin Jarre, who was initially set to direct, but he was replaced when he became too overwhelmed with the project. George P. Cosmatos, whom Jarre felt had no understanding or appreciation of the screenplay, stepped into the director's seat shortly after. According to Kurt Russell, Cosmatos was essentially a ghost director, and he helmed the project from behind the scenes. He said of being offered director, "I'll do it, but I don't want to put my name on it. I don't want to be the guy. I said to George, I'm going to give you a shot list every night, and that's what's going to be." Tombstone became known for its behind-the-scenes drama, and Costner's exit from the production could be considered part of the milieu. According to Russell, Costner had originally been attached to do the movie with Jarre. However, Costner decided he liked the idea of doing not Tombstone, but Wyatt Earp with Lawrence Kasdan writing it. And he gave the movie to Kevin with his best wishes. Good luck. Kasdan would, indeed, go on to produce and write Wyatt Earp, 1994, alongside Costner. As a parting shot from Tombstone, Costner made sure to shut down all avenues of release for the picture except for Disney, except for Buena Vista, preventing some of the filmmakers from making certain casting choices. While Val Kilmer is now heavily associated with Doc Holliday for his portrayal of Earp's close associate, he was not the first choice. Jarre had wanted to cast Willem Dafoe in the role, a startlingly different choice. Thankfully, the filmmaking team was also more than happy to cast Kilmer in the role. There was even an instance when Richard Gere was considered for Earp and Russell would slide into the role of Holliday. Kilmer himself recalled that over 100 cast and/or crew had been fired or quit during the film's production. He reflected how it could have totally fallen apart, but instead every single actor that did it committed themselves to follow through and try to realize the film they had committed to. Tombstone production details. Directed by George P. Cosmatos. Written by Kevin Jarre. Release date, December 25, 1993. Running time 130 minutes. Tombstone opened in December 1993, 6 months prior to Costner's Wyatt Earp. In its opening weekend, it placed just behind The Pelican Brief and Mrs. Doubtfire at the box office. Critic Roger Ebert recalled not being able to see the film before audiences as was usual. Tombstone was a movie that the studio decided not to even screen for the critics. It came out at Christmas, and I missed seeing it in its opening week. But I got dozens of messages about Val Kilmer's performance as Doc Holliday. Ultimately, Ebert would give the movie a favorable review, in contrast to his partner Gene Siskel, who was less taken with the beloved Western. The critical consensus on Rotten Tomatoes still reads, "If you're seeking a stylish modern Western with a solid story and a well-chosen ensemble cast, Tombstone is your huckleberry." The Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp was a box office bomb. By the early 1990s, Costner already had a couple Westerns under his belt. Considered by some to be the best Western of the 1980s, Silverado came out in 1985 and featured Costner and a cast of heavy hitters. Acting alongside Kevin Kline, John Cleese, Danny Glover, Jeff Goldblum, and Linda Hunt, the movie follows a band of misfit friends come together to right the injustices which exist in a small town. Dances with Wolves was directed by Costner and won Best Picture at the 1990 Oscars. It's potentially the most awarded Western in the history of the Academy Awards. So, it's not surprising that when Costner set out to tackle another sweeping Western, he was fairly confident in his abilities to execute it successfully. In Wyatt Earp, Costner plays the lead role of the titular sheriff. Dennis Quaid plays a dynamic, but different Holiday than Kilmer. Costner was once more teaming up with Kasdan, who had directed him in Silverado, only this time as director and screenwriter. Earp is certainly a more character-driven piece than Tombstone. And for anyone who likes to really become invested in one man's journey, it's a compelling piece of filmmaking. It just might require more patience as it's a slow burn. Costner's attempt to tell a more focused film about Earp's life would be unfortunately eclipsed by Tombstone's success. Wyatt Earp clocks in at 190 minutes compared to Tombstone's 180-minute runtime. Quaid said of working on the film, "I thought myself, my taste, I personally thought it was too long. But I'm also really proud of it. I loved working with Larry Kasdan. I loved working with Kevin." Costner believed in the project, despite its relatively close release date to Tombstone. He said years later, "In the end, Wyatt Earp cost $63 million to make and only grossed $56 million at the box office." Kevin Costner continues to invest in Western epics. Costner has not ceased to believe in the power of the American Western. He spearheaded the popular modern Western series, Yellowstone, 2018 to 2014, which has birthed numerous spin-offs. 1924, 2022, 1883, 2021 to 2022, and the upcoming The Madison are all products of Costner's Yellowstone family saga. No doubt, the success of Yellowstone once again inspired him to return to the big screen with yet another Western epic. Horizon, an American Saga, is a planned series in 4 parts, with the first part having seen its wide release in 2024. Costner said he looks forward to taking audiences on a ride and wants to explore the effect the Civil War had on America. Chapter 1 opened to mixed reviews and a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the outlook for Chapter 2 looks as though it may be more of the same. Costner remains faithful to his project despite the dismissive reviews, stating, "They can't be dismissive of Horizon, because now it's out of their hands. And they might point to the finish line. Well, this is what it did at the box office, but I know that this movie is going to play for the next 50 years. For all its ambition, Horizon may go the way of Wyatt Earp, but that does not seem to take away Costner's desire to keep telling these truly American stories. And if anything, they are worth watching to see an earnest depiction of a bygone era and its impact on the history of the United States."